Hello again, it's Mrs. T, and we are still talking about socialization and technically culture also, and nature versus nurture, and all of those things I spoke about in previous lectures. So if you haven't seen those already and don't have stuff about those in your notes, then stop right now and go back and do that. But this lecture is going to be about some of the information that you really need to know and consider in order to properly debate that nature versus nurture question that we talked about in the previous lecture. So as sociologists, you should already know that sociologists lean toward nurture, which refers to the socialization process or the life experience that people have, the social environment that shapes our behavior over time. But in order for sociologists to really understand how socialization can be lifelong is the key term here, we have to look to see what the human baby is capable of comprehending and reacting to and interacting about from the moment it's born on up through adolescence, because our brain is developing and we just aren't capable of comprehension of certain complex concepts like adults are. So there are a lot of psychologists who look at brain function and brain development from the organic sense and provided a lot of research and data and published a lot of information for us to consider about the way that human brains develop and the aspects of our personalities, even personalities as human beings, which we will look at a lot in, toward the end of chapter 3, but also in chapter 4 and 5, we'll look at social identity and behavior and the personal ideas of self and things like that. But that's a huge topic in psychology class too, personality development, right? So we're going to look at two developmental psychologists. Actually, the second one, Freud, is not necessarily only a developmental psychologist, but he did contribute to that field. So the first one that we're going to look at is Jean Piaget, and you probably have studied him just briefly in your basic psychology class, but definitely if you've taken developmental psychology, you've spent a lot of time looking at him much more in depth than what I'm going to go into right now in our sociology class that's just an intro class. But essentially, Jean Piaget spent almost his entire research career looking into cognitive development. Now, cognition means thinking. I'm pointing at my noggin here, so it means thinking. And as a matter of fact, when I say noggin, that's kind of where cognition comes from, is because you are thinking and your brain is here anyway. All right, so cognitive development, how do we develop our thinking processes? What are we capable of thinking about when we're infants, on up through when we're 8, on up through when we're 12, on up through, etc., right? Like you progress, just like you get taller. You know, you can't reach stuff on the refrigerator immediately. You have to get tall enough to reach up there and grab something from that high. Some of us never get that tall, but anyhow, you have to develop your skeleton, and your brain is just exactly the same way. And so we have to really study, so that we're not reductionists, we have to study what are young human beings able to learn and interact about, since we claim as sociologists that the socialization process begins at birth, right? It's lifelong. Okay, so let's look at the wisdom that Jean Piaget can give to us. So he developed something called the cognitive development theory, and he broke childhood on up to adolescence. He broke it down into 4 different stages, okay? So the first stage is the sensory motor stage. That's his term. And in this stage, he claims that individuals are just focused solely on their immediate needs caused by their 5 senses. Are you cold? Are you hot? Are you hungry? There's a physical sensation if you're hungry. Are you tired? There's a physical sensation there. Do you have to pee-pee? Do you have to poo-poo? All of those different, do you have pain anywhere? Those are sensory reactions, right? Sensory responses. Motor skills, to make the word sensory motor skills refer to motion. So, babies don't really know yet that their hand is attached to their body. They might be distracted if they see their hand fly in front of their face. They, oh, what was that, right? They don't realize that's attached to them, that is them. They don't have physical knowledge of themselves yet. And those parents out there, some of you brand new, some of you old timers, certainly have the experience that babies communicate about these sensory motor things. If they're too cold, they'll cry. If they just need to hear your voice, they will cry. That's a sensory perception also, right? So Jean Piaget said that your brain will develop fully if, when you communicate about sensory motor issues, you get responses within a reasonable time frame, and you get reasonable responses. If you cry and the response is a slap, that's not reasonable, and you are probably going to not have a normal cognitive development based on that harsh reaction. If you cry and eventually, within a short period of time, doesn't have to be instantaneous and probably shouldn't be instantaneous, if you cry and you get a satisfactory response within a satisfactory period of time, then you probably will develop the skills that you need later in order to make self-regulation and not be so demanding and not want things now. And later on, when you actually have more cognitive presence about you and can communicate about more than just your sensations that you have. Okay. So also, the pre-operational stage is the next one, and this is about, you'll notice that the age ranges that I've typed on this document, the age ranges kind of overlap a little bit because these aren't hard and fast. The first one goes from 0 to about 2. This one starts at about 2 on up to 7. So the pre-operational stage, this is the stage where kids are saying why to everything, and you can give them the most beautiful answer that's scientifically perfect, and nuclear physicists would agree with your answer, and they'll just say, well, why? And they haven't heard you at all. You just sound like Charlie Brown's teacher to them or something. So anyway, the pre-operational stage, you can talk by this point, but you really only understand the world in terms of the mental images that are put into your head from outside stimulus. So I've got SpongeBob and Spider-Man listed here. You see them on TV, right? So they're real. And I might ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you'd be like, well, I want to be SpongeBob, or I want to be Bob the Builder, or I want to be whoever it is that you watch on TV. And these are the answers that you might get. You might also get a seemingly realistic answer, like I want to be a nurse just like Dad. You might get that answer, but that child does not know yet and can't know. Even if you drag them to work with you on Take Child to Work Day, they can't comprehend really what's involved with being a nurse. They might say it, though, so it sounds like they know what they're doing, but don't let them fool you, parents. They don't have the cognitive skills yet to reason through their answers. Okay? Concrete operational stage. Concrete means concrete thought. They think in terms of tangible objects, like I have written here, actual events. Tangible objects, it's something that you can touch. Remember when we were talking about material and non-material culture? The material side are tangible objects. You can touch them. Non-material side, conceptual things like love or faithfulness. Those kinds of things are conceptual. And children in the age around 7 to around 11 don't have that concept-based mindset yet. It's not because they're slow or they're never going to have it. They just haven't fully developed their brain function, and their brain isn't tall enough to reach on top of the refrigerator, for lack of a better metaphor or simile or whatever that was. It still has some development to go, some growth to go through. So they're able to understand that birthdays, like my example, are really important events, but they don't really comprehend the year's worth of time that it takes to get around to another birthday, or how long it actually takes to drive to grandma's house. They know they love it when they get there, so they're focused on, wow, I'm going to love this when I get there because I've had this experience in the past. But how much longer now? Right? Those kinds of questions. Okay, so the formal operational stage, this is when you get to learn algebra. Yay! This is when you're able to have abstract concepts, and you are likely to be able to pick them up. So that doesn't happen until around the age of 11 or 12, for your brain to be grown up enough to handle abstract concepts. So now, if you used to say, when you were 5, you used to say you wanted to be a nurse like Daddy, but now you know that blood grosses you out, you faint if you have to get a vaccination with a needle or something, and you are now able to connect the blood and the needles with at least some of the duties that a nurse has to do on a regular basis, and so you're probably less likely, you're definitely less likely in the formal operational stage to say you want to be a nurse just like daddy. No, you're going to have a more realistic outlook on the future. You're going to maybe talk to guidance counselors about what classes you should take in high school, or do you want to go to the performing arts high school or the science and math high school, because what do you think maybe your future career is going to be like? And so it's during the formal operational stage that you'll get your driving permit, because the idea is you can grasp more, you can see more around you, process more around you, anticipate what's ahead, look behind, use it to do what you need to do in the future. Those kinds of things are possible in the formal operational stage. So this is all extremely important for sociologists to understand, because we claim that socialization begins at birth, and it does, but what can we learn at birth? It's not the same stuff that we can learn when we're 20. So what can we learn at birth? It's not the same stuff we can learn when we're 12, and some psychologists have spent their life's work trying to determine what that process is. Jean Piaget is one of them. Now, really briefly, let's talk about Freud. He's another very famous psychologist who you will read about in chapter 3, and he is famous for talking about the aspects of the personality called the id, the ego, and the superego. Now, the id is about biological drives or sensory motor stuff, if you want to use one of the terms Jean Piaget did and apply it to what Freud was talking about. The id is that biological drive thing inside of us that we want satisfaction right now. We feel that we need to pee-pee, and we're going to pee-pee now. We don't care if it's in our pants or not. We just got to get that stuff out of us because the sensation is there. It's not pleasant. We want the sensation to go away. We're going to pee-pee. But the ego comes with development, it comes with life experience, it comes with self-control, and the ego says, you know what, I need to pee-pee right now, but it's in my best interest to not be embarrassed, to not cause trouble to my mama or whatever. It's in my best interest to wait until I get to the potty, and then I will pee-pee in the potty, and it will save me and everybody else a whole lot of trouble. So it's like in my self-interest to put what I need to do or what I think I want on hold, so that a better outcome happens when I finally do satisfy what it is that I want satisfied. The superego, on the other hand, is not just about the self, but it's about the moral consequences or the ethical consequences that happen around us. So I don't know why I started with the urine example, but let me continue with it. Sorry if I get a little gross here, but the superego is the part of us that can say, we need to pee-pee, we're going to go pee-pee in the potty, but in order to be ethical and environmentally respectful, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. Okay, so there's like an ethical dilemma or something that you can think about in terms of the superego, where you can make those decisions for the benefit of not just you and your selfishness, like maybe the ego makes a decision based on, yes, I need satisfaction, but what's the best path towards satisfaction to benefit me? The superego is, yes, I need satisfaction. Yes, I want the best path to benefit me, but is there also an additional thing I can do to benefit, the good of humanity, or however you want to put it? Okay, so please read more about this. You will also read about the stages of moral development that other psychologists have posed for us in our literature canon, I guess, or research canon, I guess is what I'll say. And so this is, we have to know the psychology stuff in order to fully be able to argue that the socialization process is a lifelong process where we learn to behave within our immediate social group based on the social interaction we have with them from birth on up. Okay, text me with questions. Bye.